couple other small points I want to make. First of all, I have a tendency to put too much pressure when I'm polishing, especially if I'm tense about some aspect of it. The old saying is, let the tool do the work. Same thing with the polish. Let the polish and the pad do the work. Put some pressure, but don't overpress. You'll tend to introduce more marks than it's worth. Now, when we spear it off, we're going to put more pressure, but not when we're bodying. You're putting modest pressure. Another thing that I sometimes do with this sort of latter stages, when I'm trying hard not to introduce anything negative to the work, is I will put a drop of oil on the outside of the cover sometimes. If I feel that the pad is sticking despite having olive oil inside the pad. So that's a technique you might choose to use if you're getting a little bit of stick. You'll find that you will be gradually at this point filling maybe the last of your imperfections. And we want to try not to add any more imperfections, but keep the pad moving. I just had a little stick. We'll see what it ends up looking like. The other thing you may get at this stage is the occasional shellac pimple, or a little bit of raised area where there's a bit of a glob of shellac. Maybe glob is overstating the case, but a little bit too much. I'll try to use pumice to get it out. If I can't, and I feel very steady that day, I can take a very sharp, small scraper blade and very, very carefully scrape it off. But this is something you probably ought to practice first before you try. Less is more. You may need a few passes with a scraper just to get that spot off, and that's again assuming you've already tried with pumice, you've already softened with alcohol. The scraper can work. Please don't write me and say you ruined your finish with your scraper. But it actually does work. Again, in between, after a couple of polishing sessions, I will stiff the finish with a couple of drops of alcohol. In fact, I'm going to do that right now on the top. I'm just going to take really, literally a couple, 2-3 drops. Wipe it off. Again, this was my 8th polishing session. So I'm closing in on what would be my normal end point. I mean, that is, in a sense, arbitrary. I've just found over the years that 10 sessions usually does it for me. I don't want the pad too wet with alcohol. I just want enough to hit a bit of a vapor trail. And again, as I said before, when we spear it off, we're going to do the same function, but much more meticulously. Here, we're removing oil. We're softening and smoothing the finish just a little bit. I work the pad around some of the cracks and crevices, in this case the F-holes I want to make sure I get. There's still plenty of work to be done on the top. I can feel that there's a fair amount of oil on the surface, and this will get up some of it.